Greetings, everybody, from the shores of South Florida. It is the USL Super League tonight on Peacock as Fort Lauderdale United welcomes DC Power underneath the Florida sunshine here tonight. It's presented by All Year Cooling and Plumbing. Sean St. Jacques, Casey White, our entire crew, happy to have you with us with two teams hoping to get back on track a bit in the USL Super League standings, which we look at here. They're brought to you by Delta Airlines and KC Fort Lauderdale, pushing for the playoffs. DC Power trying to finish the season on a high note.
They're definitely going to want to try to climb the standings, but for Fort Lauderdale United, only 5 points out of first place with those 2 games in hand. So 3 points goes an extra long way tonight.
And not just battling for playoffs, battling for playoff seeding as well as we get down the stretch of this campaign. And well, pretty much all season, our Baptist Health player to watch has made a big impact. It's been Addie McCain for Fort Lauderdale United.
And McCain's in that golden boot race, but she's so much more than a goal scorer. She really sets the tempo for Fort Lauderdale in that midfield. She sets up other players. Just very good at all things technically executed from the attacking midfielder.
Yeah, Tyrone Mears talked to us about how she's also been a leader on and off the field throughout this season for Fort Lauderdale. Talk about leading from the front. Gianna Gorley's done just that for DC Power, and they need more goals.
And Gorley is an incredible player up top where she starts the pressing from the defensive side, but what I like from her attacking-wise is how she's always looked to be on the back shoulder of players going to penetrate in behind the back line. She's someone they're going to look for to really be attacking-minded going forward.
She's helped DC Power have struggled to score goals this season, try to turn a corner a bit in that regard in the Super League campaign. Fort Lauderdale hoping to push even higher towards first place in the Super League standings. DC Power, though, have had their number at times this season. They'll look for another win here in South Florida. Kickoff's coming up next here on Peacock.
Hi, I'm Sloan Smith. We love our Florida sunshine, but a hot house? Definitely not. At All Year, we offer same-day AC service and installation. Need to stay cool? Yes, All Year. Need help today? Yes, All Year. Zero down financing? Yes, All Year. We're South Florida's #1 for comfort because our family is serving your family all year. Call us today at 833-ALL-YEAR. That's 833-ALL-YEAR.
I said I'd rather be famous instead. You're more than a superstar.
The city. Clouds just started thawing out there. Temperatures staying in the high 40s. Tomorrow's forecast will be in the 60s. The beaches staying around 62.
Welcome back to the tactical side of things for a very important USL Super League game tonight. Lineups are sponsored by LaCroix Sparkling Water. And Casey, we begin with Tyrone Mears and Fort Lauderdale.
Well, Morshea will go into goal, and normally they'll build out of a 3-back system, but what's interesting about this lineup is there's a lot of flexibility. When you have players like McCain, Knox, Raji, and Smith in the midfield, they can go into little different pockets to build out of that midfield shape. And then you have the front 3 of Hamid, Baucom, and Gordon. All have the ability to play back to goal, but also are at their best when they're running at back lines.
Yeah, Tyrone Mears didn't mince words. He wants more from Fort Lauderdale tonight. There's no questions about that. And on the other side of things, for interim coach Phil Nana and DC Power, also hoping to bounce back. And here's the starting 11 for the visitors.
And we'll expect them to come out in a 4-1-4-1. Claire Constant in that center back role is a big player to get back in there, help lead the back line. Myrnan has had a couple good outings, and she'll come in on that left side of the back line as well. But watch for Giyu and Kurosaki to really dictate things in midfield, and looking for Gianna Gorley to try to penetrate in behind the back line.
A lot of history already between these two teams. A lot of very interesting prior fixtures as well between the two clubs. The last time these two met in Florida was the last time DC won in the USL Super League, November 23rd of last year during the first half of the Super League season. It was a Bagley goal in stoppage time that allowed DC to get the victory. And of course, Fort Lauderdale's first ever Super League win came at the hands of DC Power. That was back in September of 2024. So a little bit of a rubber game between these two teams. DC Power, of course, slipping away as far as the playoff chase is concerned, but it can make life difficult for a Fort Lauderdale team that has it all to play for, all in front of them, not just playoffs in general, but playoff seeding as well. Fort Lauderdale very easily could still finish top of the table.
Well, and as a staff and as players of a team like DC Power, they can play spoiler. They can still figure out, how do we build on this? How do we end the season on a high note? Fort Lauderdale, as you mentioned, has everything to play for, and it's so incredibly tight in those first 6 spots in the league with enough games to go that 1 point versus 3 points could make an incredibly big difference.
I'm sure the fact that DC's had success here already this season, again, it was a while ago, but that's got to give them some confidence coming off a game against Carolina where Phil Nana told us they felt like they did a lot of things well defensively. It's a part of the game they're still trying to get up to the standards they're hoping for, but it just didn't quite hold out for 90 minutes. That consistency is still something that DC is striving for.
It is, and there's been a lot of moving pieces. You mentioned about the previous matchups as well. The roster for DC Power looks incredibly different, and so you have to think, yes, there's a good feeling coming back, but there's multiple new players that haven't played here as well. So it's just very interesting to see how they're going to match up in this spring fixture. They all have different things to play for, and how are both of these coaches going to try to manipulate space to try to gain an advantage?
Gianna Gorley returns to her former club tonight. Jorian Backham as well started the season with DC Power. She's now, of course, starting tonight for Fort Lauderdale United. So familiar faces in new places, also a theme of tonight's game as well. And again, for Fort Lauderdale, anytime you drop points at this stage of the season, it could matter quite a bit. So Tyrone Mears, again, he did not mince any words. It was not good enough from Fort Lauderdale. He told us last time out against in-state rivals Tampa Bay, a 2-0 defeat that ended a 9-match unbeaten run for Fort Lauderdale heading into that game. So they're hoping to restart that unbeaten form here tonight at a home field where they've done so well this season. 5 of their 9 wins have come here this season. So they're hoping that some home cooking can help fill in those remedies. Aleo Kalume is our head official. Fort Lauderdale will kick us off. They are in blue, and they're going from right to left here on Peacock as we are underway. DC are in white with the blue trim and the blue shorts, and off we go from South Florida. Again, it's Sean St. Jacques, Casey White, our entire crew. Always a privilege to be with you. Always a privilege to be on these late season games with so much at stake. Again, all 8 Super League teams are in action tonight. So we'll be keeping you up to date on all the moving and shaking that is still to take place in the Super League table. If the prior 2 games are any indication, we could expect something really, really big to happen tonight. Both games have been of such significance in the prior meetings between Fort Lauderdale and DC. We expect nothing less here tonight. Well, tonight's keys to the game are presented by Amarant Bank, and we start, Casey, with Fort Lauderdale.
For Fort Lauderdale, they're going to want to possess higher up the pitch. They are definitely a team that usually dominates in possession, but where that possession occurs is going to be important. Can they keep DC Power in their own half and look to penetrate? And for DC, defending the wide spaces, the wing play of Fort Lauderdale is very impactful through Hamid and Gordon, so they're going to have to figure out how to provide natural cover in that outside channel.
The ball's played onto this near side for Fitch, who tried to cross it into the middle, and it ricochets out of play off of Delaney Lindahl. It's a DC corner inside of the opening 2 minutes. It's an all-year cooling and plumbing corner here for Fort Lauderdale to defend. And before it's taken, the referee just wants to make sure that everything stays up to code inside the penalty area. Morshea trying to make sure that it doesn't get too congested around the 6-yard box as DC's corner comes in, and it goes right out of play onto the roof of the net.
Well, it's definitely not what you want as a visiting team coming in, earning a corner kick early on. But I want to go back to what was going on in the 6-yard box. You've got Jorian Bockham, who's your center forward, all the way back defending. It shows her tenacity, her aerial presence. They would bring her into that space. Luckily for them, the service didn't go in there, but that's something to watch as she continues to help on the defensive side as well.
She'll be needed in the attack as well. Fort Lauderdale trying to avoid being held scoreless in 3 straight Super League games this season. That hasn't happened in this inaugural campaign. In fact, the 2-0 loss to Tampa Bay was just the first time they've been held scoreless in back-to-back games this season. Such a rarity for a Tyrone Mears side that almost scores goals for fun at times. They almost can't help but score goals. That's how many attacking pieces this United side has, but the goals have dried up over the last 180 minutes.
Well, and in speaking with him, it's the connectivity of those front 4, if you add Addie McCain into the mix, that he feels has been a little bit lacking. The individual presence is there. They're all dangerous in and of themselves, but as you go throughout this league, all these coaches understand that, and there's adjustments that are made. So the connectivity between them, the unit play, all of that just hasn't really been clicking, even though they're still generating opportunities. So that's really what he's looking for in that final third in this game.
Addie McCain actually went up to Tyrone Mears in his office this week and said, what more can I do? How can we continue to improve as a team? Kind of what we alluded to earlier, how Addie McCain's been one of those leaders on and off the field. And of course has been certainly leading by example with 11 goal contributions, 9 goals and 2 assists this season as well, on top of all that. She did score against DC the night that Fort Lauderdale got their first ever Super League win back in the middle of September. So she has enjoyed some goal scoring against the Power this season. Lovely little give and go on this near side. Jasmine Hamid, who's also been overall in very excellent form for Fort Lauderdale, falls down on the edge of the penalty area. Referee takes a look and says play on. Still some defensive work to do at the back. Ansbro has Morshea for a reset for Fort Lauderdale.
And that was good transition defending from the 2 center backs of Fort Lauderdale, with Ansbro coming back and Jordan, because when they're up there attacking, you've got to be ready for that long service in behind. Gianna Gorley is always a threat going over the top, and they handled it perfectly in that moment.
Goal scoring, I should say, has been DC's Achilles heel this season. They have conceded the 2nd most goals, but it's still in and around the rest of the pack in the USL Super League. They're not super far off the mean, if you will, in that particular statistic. But on the goal scoring side of things, DC have just not been able to stack up the numbers. And again, going back to that consistency, they really haven't had a consistent goal flow throughout the campaign, and it's why they're currently sitting right towards the bottom of the table. It's just nudged on by Bockham, who then looks to follow up. Wolfbauer was there initially, picked back up by Knox, and then played out wide by Smith. McCain continued the run as the cross was blocked out of play, and it's going to be an all-year cooling and plumbing corner for Fort Lauderdale.
Well, there's really good play right now for Fort Lauderdale in the midfield. They're trying to overload with 4 center midfielders in that box formation. It shifts out of a diamond. This was the earlier play from Hamid. She loves to come inside on her right foot, goes there. A little bit lucky. They're going to have to be careful in that moment. There's good cover there between Constant and Fitch to make sure nothing happens. But that's what Hamid wants to do, get inside and try to get shots off.
Here comes the corner opportunity for Fort Lauderdale. And it fell for McCain, who nudges it forward. And then the shot comes in. It's not cleared yet. A second opportunity, and then a third from Hamid after Gordon couldn't quite wrap her boot around it. And it is cleared away. A couple of good chances there for Fort Lauderdale inside the penalty area. Raji down the line looking for Knox. And it rolls out of play for a goal kick. But once again, United knocking on the DC door. Tonight's injury report is presented by Baptist Health. DC in pretty good shape, all things considered. And then we did talk to Tyrone Mears about it. Vaca, Grosso, amongst some of the players still working their way back in to things. There's still just about enough games left for players like those to get back in the fold. And for Fort Lauderdale, they're hoping to get back into the fold for a playoff run, of course, at the end of the regular season.
Well, it's such a long season. We were talking about the Fort Lauderdale form earlier and different things like injuries or new signings and things. Like, you have to not get too high or too low. Like, form is going to dip at times, form's going to peak at times. You have to figure out how to be as consistent as possible, and I think that's what Fort Lauderdale's trying to do, because they're great in possession. They just haven't been able to figure out these last few games those results that maybe reflects the possession and the chances that they have created.
Fort Lauderdale's season has also had a few peaks and some valleys as well. Before that 9-game unbeaten run, there was talk of, can Fort Lauderdale get back to that early season form where they looked so good in the opening few weeks of the season, and then of course they figured it out with that 9-game unbeaten run. But now no wins in their last 2, no goals in their last 2. And they're hoping to change that here tonight. Lovely ball played out to this far side for Gordon. Gordon for McCain, who didn't quite get there in time. It's well shepherded by Wolfbauer.
Just the technical execution there lacking, but great attacking shape. I love that Addie McCain got onto the front line. Then you've got 4 players on a front line. It allows Gordon to have space right there. Just had more time than I think she realized. Could have found McCain's feet inside the penalty area.
A reset for Darya Raji as Gorley trots back on to the field for DC, and then Hamid tried a clever little dummy move on this near side. It ricochets off of Fitch and out of play. Of course, Addie McCain has written many of the headlines in the USL Super League this season, but Jasmine Hamid of late has just been in red-hot form. Has scored maybe some of the best goals we've seen in this inaugural USL Super League season, and that is saying something. All part of a high-powered Fort Lauderdale attack that's on the prowl again here, but Knox was surrounded, couldn't find a teammate, and DC looked to emerge here with possession. Kurosaki did well, and then on this near side, Fort Lauderdale are just about going to shepherd this out of play. I think Lindahl
Gets there first. There's not natural covering shape, so she does well there in that moment.
Bockham against her former club. Couldn't quite find the corner. Well, that was nearly vintage Jorian Bockham. It was a lovely touch to get into space, just couldn't put it on frame.
And this is exactly what Bockham brings. She has that energy, that strength to get in behind, and she's looking to pick out the far post. She just gets on the outside of the ball and strikes it a little bit too much with the inside of her foot, so it curls away from the post, but she's a handful up top. And there's a real good combination right now with what Fort Lauderdale's doing. There's some very good possession through the thirds, and then there's that dangerous play of also looking to penetrate out of that possession.
Here comes the Bockham press. Hamid and company looking to help out as well. McCain steps a boot in there as well. Wolfbauer is able to just about handle the situation. Tyrone Mears talked about how he wants to see his team win the ball back high up the field. It's part of the Fort Lauderdale DNA. Get some chances off of that, of course, and they're continuing to work for that on this far side. And they do win the ball back. Knocks off the McCain hustle. McCain forced wide by Bockham. And then it ricochets a couple of times. Somehow it stayed in play off of Mernon, and now it goes out for a United throw. It's going to be thrown back in by Gordon for Raji. Gorley was able to do really well defensively there and sweeps it up.
When you just really never know how tactics are going to change throughout a game as these coaches watch and see different spaces that become available. But right now, Shania Gordon's having to put in a shift. She gets high and wide as a winger, but when they are defending, she's in the back line. And so they're defending out of a completely different shape, becomes a 4-back, and then she's up there doing things in the attacking half as well that are really dangerous.
Fitch keeps it away from Hamid. And then it's poked up ahead for Gorley to hold up the play, and there was 3 teammates around her. And now can DC move it forward up the other end? Guiu dispossessed. This is going to be where DC needs to make some inroads as the game moves along. Misstep by Bachem, who then is able to poke it back to Raji and win the ball back very quickly for Fort Lauderdale.
And this is where you can see Gordon going on that far side, now getting higher up into a wing position all the way on the back line. It's a lot of ground for her to cover, but Fort Lauderdale's doing extremely well to possess, to allow that big expansive shape to take place, and then you can find her feet in this kind of moment.
She was there to place the pass, looking for Bachem. But again, Wolfbauer and company are able to just about clean it up. Although as soon as I say that, again, Fort Lauderdale with that pressure, win it back. McCain tried to scoop it forward for Taylor Smith. It bounces out. Some suffocating pressure from Fort Lauderdale that DC are going to have to deal with as these minutes tick by.
Well, Coach Tyrone Mears talked about the lack of energy he felt against the Tampa Bay Sun in the last game, and I'd say there's been a big change at the start of this first 14 minutes or so, where there's a tenacity to get the ball back. There's a willingness to go forward and quick.
Oh, Bachem tried to find Knox. A little tardy on the pass, but Fort Lauderdale will take the throw.
Anytime you see runs from your 10s, your attacking midfielders getting beyond the 9, you know they've come to play, because you're looking to be on the front foot and push things forward. So that energy piece, that intensity piece is there so far.
Crossed for Bachem, and it just sneaks its way through. Cujo on the clearance. That's all DC can do at the moment, just get the ball out of harm's way, and then Fort Lauderdale gets another opportunity to ask questions of the DC power defense. It's held up for Smith. It's played lovely down the line. Cross in for Bachem is cleared. And then it's touchdown for Addie McCain, who couldn't get the shot away. Raji sprays it back out to the far side, too far out in front of Gordon. More positive build-up play for Fort Lauderdale, just no end products. Does give us a chance to look around the league at some of the other scores. Carolina leading Brooklyn at the moment by a 0-0. They're about to get to halftime. Tampa Bay 3-0 up against Lexington in the first half. And of course, later on tonight, big game as well, also on Peacock. Spokane Zephyr playing host to Dallas. It's going to be a 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kick. DC looking for their first real foray forward. And the cross into the penalty area is easily dealt with. Cleared out for McCain, who helps it along for Hamid, who has some time and space. Clever skill from Hamid to find Knox. And Knox scoops it through for Bachem. It's Bachem! It's wide.
All really good things from Fort Lauderdale United. DC is worried about Hamid, so she finds Knox. It's a great little touch. She lifts it over the defender's foot and going for the near post here. I just don't know if she got her hips around that or was really trying for the near post. Still needs to get that to the far post and low, make sure that's on frame. But all good things coming. They're putting a lot of pressure on DC, but you've got to execute one of these, because DC's, if they hang in this, will start to figure out some spaces to exploit.
Gorley was able to swoop in and get possession, but that didn't have a ton of options, was collapsed upon very quickly, and ends up turning it over. Just to go back to the point you were making, Casey, in particular, the first half that Fort Lauderdale played against Tampa Bay really, really frustrated Tyrone Mears and his staff. Just was not acceptable. He was very candid with us about how much they really didn't like the first half. It was not up to the lofty standards that this Fort Lauderdale team has put out there this season. So the second half was a little bit better, getting back to what we want to see. But really, it's been this first half, these first 18 minutes, that have been more like it for Fort Lauderdale. They're hoping to cap it off with a goal, but that cross into the middle is cut out by Wolfbauer. This has been a lot closer to Fort Lauderdale at their best. And Hamid lays it off for Knox, who forces a good save out of Morgan Aquino.
Well, it's the counter-pressing for me. Yes, the attack is very good and fluid, but when they do lose possession or there's a clearance, the organization behind the ball has been great. They look connected. This connectivity between Hamid and Knox is right on point, exactly what you want. I love that Knox took it first time, but a good save from Aquino. A lot of traffic in front, and she's big to keeping DC in this. But to your point, Sean, of what you were talking about, they did get more possession as that Tampa Bay Sun game went on and some more opportunities. But it's the whole thing of, is it more the opposition or your team that you have to credit with that? And Tampa Bay Sun was very good in that first half as well against Fort Lauderdale.
Gorley was able to ride the Hamid challenge, and then it was crossed into the middle, looking for Anna Bagley, who of course was the hero for DC the last time they were here in the USL Super League, a 90-plus second minute winner. Get the power all 3 points. The last time they've gotten all 3 points in a game in the Super League. Not quite able to redirect that on target on this occasion.
And DC's changed a little bit of the way they're pressing, only with one high. Kurosaki was high with Gorley, and I would assume that's to really try to finish out the numbers in midfield, because Fort Lauderdale in the central channel has a numbers up superiority almost every time they get the ball, because Bagley and Fitch are on the back line as a back five. So they're defending the wide space, but now Fort Lauderdale has all that central number advantage, and so it's difficult. So now they brought Kurosaki back in, probably just to settle that down a little bit and not allow Fort Lauderdale to possess through that channel.
Morshea will reset as Fort Lauderdale get ready to put forth another attacking effort. A little bit of a dangerous pass on that far side. It does get to Gordon. Gordon with a little bit of help from Taylor Smith keeps United in possession. You mentioned it, Casey. Morgan Aquino is going to be key tonight. She comes into the game with the 4th most saves in the USL Super League at 40. That was coming in to the game. She's added on to that, of course.
Well, that is something that's been good for DC, is that compact, disciplined shape. We're already seeing it. Fort Lauderdale looks very sharp, but DC has stayed compact, stayed tight together, haven't been penetrated too much. It's really been Bockham that's gotten in twice, that's been the most dangerous, but you need a goalkeeper behind you as well that's really comfortable coming up with that big save.
Ball's played through for Bockham, who tried a little step over, and then McCain tried to pick up the pieces. Bockham holds it up for Gordon, who could not keep it going. Oh, and the referee brings it back for a free kick. So all not lost for Fort Lauderdale there. They'll get a set piece opportunity.
And again, it's the movement off of the front runner. So Bockham right here trying to get around Claire Constant, but look at Addison McCain trying to take an opportunity there. That's what we're seeing from Fort Lauderdale, is they're looking to force everything in a good way. They want to go forward, they want runs above the ball, and they're being rewarded for it.
A few words that Phil Nana talked to us about when it came to the defensive side of the game. He wants communication, effort, and organization. He's going to need all 3 of those here as DC look to defend this set piece. It's played towards Bockham, and in the end it's played out of play. But those 3 keys in general are what DC's going to have to do throughout the entire game if they're going to get the 2 things that Phil Nana and his staff want. A clean sheet, which DC just has not had enough of this season. But of course, they'd love nothing more than to end this long, long drought without a win. 7 games on the bounce without a victory for DC Power, and of course, none in this calendar year either. They'd love to do it here and give themselves a chance to build a bit of a foundation for the end of the regular season.
And you mentioned it earlier, they're not giving up a lot of goals. And they are compact and organized. I think it's the communication piece of passing on players, when to stay with players, when to let them go to your teammate, especially with the movement of Fort Lauderdale. That's going to be part of their defensive effort that's going to breed success for them if they're going to be successful in this game.
Yeah, they've only given up 29 goals this season. I'm sure the DC staff would tell you we'd want to improve on that and things of that nature, but they've only scored 14 goals this season. That really is the stat that sort of sticks out. As it looks like we'll head into our first half hydration break. Our hydration breaks are presented by LaCroix Sparkling Water. Gives both teams a chance almost for an abbreviated timeout in the early stages of the game, and actually a player down away from the play is the aforementioned Morgan Aquino, who DC really could use tonight, of course. Maybe she just needs a moment for an adjustment or two. That's sort of broadening the scope on the first 23.5 minutes. Pretty close to what Fort Lauderdale wants to do, and Tyrone Mears, I'm sure, will be passing that message along to his team. More of that the rest of the half, and maybe somewhat similar, at least from a defensive standpoint, for Phil Nana and DC Power. So far, so good, holding off a very tough and strong attack.
I think both of these coaches would be happy for the most part. For DC, Phil Nana has been happy with their build-up. I think maybe that's the only part that they're not really building up around the pressure of Fort Lauderdale as much as he would potentially like, so they're going to have to adjust and figure out things there. And for Fort Lauderdale United, after speaking with Tyrone Mears, the connectivity of the front players, the possession to penetrate and playing in their opponent's half, that's happened. And so I would think, besides the goal, which is what every team wants, I think you're happy if you're Tyrone Mears watching your team here so far.
This game's really big, of course. It's really tight in and around the playoff line at the moment. You look at the live table. Again, this is just a moment in time in this USL Super League season. We have Tampa Bay in 5th on 33 points, Fort Lauderdale in 4th on 33 points, and Brooklyn in 3rd on 33 points. That is how tight
what you want.
It is.
That's
right
what you
now.
want,
Yeah, it's
right?
exactly what you want. No question.
Maybe not those teams.
From a neutral's point of view.
Yeah, maybe not those teams, but I think it's exciting and
yeah,
everything to play for all of these teams that are in and around that playoff spot.
Yeah, for a neutral, it's a dream. That's how you want to see the drama unfold at the end of a regular season, particularly in the inaugural season. For all the teams involved, it is nail-biting time. No questions about that, as Knox goes right back to work. Can't quite pick out Backham. Again, it's well shepherded by DC on this near side. And a late challenge comes in there. It's going to be a free kick and more than likely a yellow card. I think Hamid was a bit late.
There's definitely a commitment to press and repress on a loss of possession. You see it there from Hamid, just tracking back in that moment. You don't want your player to lose that ability to come back and track, but this is a good set pass in. Fitch is right here on the ball, takes a touch, is gonna play it. It's just late. Looked like her foot was up a little bit and caught Fitch's left foot in that moment, but I like the energy from Hamid. It's just a strong challenge though, and a definite foul.
And the yellow card for Jasmine Hamid was confirmed. Did look a bit like a striker's challenge, dare I say, but yellow card nonetheless. Kind of alluding to your point, Casey, one that maybe Tyrone Mears can live with, because that's what he wants his players to do in that section of the field. Yeah,
it's a mentality piece, and so I think that bodes well for them.
Decent ball in by Fitch, had the right idea, but it's too far in front of Gorley and Bagley, who both appreciate the effort on the service. Just a little glimpse of what DC can potentially bring forth in the final third, what Phil Nana hopes they will bring forth more of in the final third tonight.
Well, with Fort Lauderdale playing a 3-back, that opposite ball is on quite often. If you're not going to build through the thirds quite yet, you can look for that change of point, and running off the backside shoulder, you have players like Kurosaki and Gorley that don't need a lot of opportunities that can create chances and potentially score. So until you are able to play yourself into the game, look for those types of opportunities to unsettle the back line.
A touch by Jordan nearly led to a turnover, but it's a firm clearance forward, and that's Cosette Morchet and company to reset. Could be a chance here for DC. It's fizzed in towards the near side of the penalty area here. And was there a little nudge in the back by Lindahl? A couple of DC players asking the questions there. Referee plays on here as Emily Colton was possibly brought down.
I'll be honest with that one. I thought that's a foul. in that moment, which would make no sense to pressure there with Emily Colton facing away from goal. So I think Delaney Lindahl might have gotten away with one there, but better from DC trying to get into those wide areas and making Fort Lauderdale have a little bit more pressure as they try to build out of the back.
DC trying to give Fort Lauderdale a dose of their own medicine here. It's out for a throw. Here's that push in the back on Colton.
And Emily Colton's running in. It's just a little bit of a shove. She doesn't extend the arm, but all the positioning goes to Emily Colton. That's a foul for me. She's not going anywhere, so there's no reason to even extend at all. So just that little bit of a push. Got away with one, I think, in that moment. But those are the kind of things you don't want to do at that part of the field. Take the mentality maybe to the attacking half. The defending half, you got to show a little bit of patience.
The ball was played out wide by Cujo, inviting some Fort Lauderdale pressure on there. Wolfbauer dribbles into traffic, and there was a good step by Taylor Smith, but Aquino and company will do a full reset for DC. Well, that pass is picked off by McCain. Bockham waits for more blue shirts to join in. McCain back for Bockham. Just tried to take a stab at it there. And McCain gets a chance to reshuffle. And then it's clipped back into the penalty area, trying to find Hamid. Again, it's a good step defensively from DC. Can they break up the other end? The answer is no, and Lindahl again is there to slam the door shut. Jordan. Gets it back from Ansbro, and Jordan looking upfield. Finds Gordon. And it's just underneath the boot of McCain and leads to a turnover.
Well, that's better from DC just to start it over because they aren't allowing numbers to get around Gianna Gorley, and then it's suffocating pressure again from Fort Lauderdale.
They could get a chance from it here, McCain. And then Hamid, it's off the post. Closest Fort Lauderdale has come. Off another takeaway, Hamid thwarted by the frame.
And DC Power just can't get out of their own half. It's McCain that's able to take an opportunity. It falls nicely to Hamid, but give her credit on this one just to take it down off the chest and get it on frame. Very good from her. If not for the post, it's 1-0.
Nearly added to her already immaculate goal-scoring catalog in the USL Super League this season. And Fort Lauderdale just keep on putting the pressure on this DC back line. Can they break through with 14 minutes left in the half?
Well, in the last couple of games for Fort Lauderdale, this is the most I've seen Raji be on the ball early in the game. And I think that every time she gets on the ball for Fort Lauderdale throughout the spring season, the tempo is better, they're better in possession. And she started in this first half getting on it in that holding mid-roll. I think it helps that they have 4 in the midfield. There's less players that they can be covered with, and she's just showing up in some really good pockets.
Smith to Jordan. First time ball over the top, finds Gordon. And Gordon sees it cleared out by Wolfbauer. It's another throw-in. We talked about how important Aquino is going to be tonight. Madison Wolfbauer has really cleaned up a lot of the messes that Fort Lauderdale have given to DC in this first half. From the throw-in, Raji back to Gordon. Tried to slither it through for McCain, and it was cleared upfield by Mernon. Once again, Fort Lauderdale can easily recycle the attack. Raji sliding it through for McCain. McCain's ball across, looking for Bockham, nearly cleared towards Knox, but then sent upfield for Lindahl to control. Raji tried to find Hamid, it's cut out by Fitch. And then Fitch looks to move it forward, and Lindahl leaves a little bit of a nudge in there. Free kick for the Power.
Well, you mentioned the defensive effort of Wolfbauer as well. There's a natural 3 center backs. That's what they've done, is had her back there to kind of clean things up. They have the wing backs come back, so they're defending that wide space area. And she's done really well to cover in that space. But Fort Lauderdale United just really trying to play through that central channel. That's where DC really needs to figure out how to track the runners of McCain and of Felicia Knox, because they're unsettling the back line centrally.
Ball's played out to the far side. Can DC create something here? Kurosaki sees it ricochet out of play. It's going to be an all-year cooling and plumbing corner for the Power as we're getting towards the final 10 minutes of the half. These are moments where DC needs to make the most of their opportunities here. And the ball in was decent. It wasn't the best of headers either. Still up for grabs here. It's clipped back into the middle by Bagley. And it falls for a DC chance here. But before it could be attacked by Mernon, it was just about cleared, only as far as Fitch. Then McCain gets back onto it not once, but twice, and clears it upfield. But DC quickly get back on it. Mernon out to the far side. And Colton was continuing the run. Colton found, and then Jordan is able to sweep it up for Fort Lauderdale.
That was a really good opportunity, though, for DC as the foul appears to be called against Bockham. But that's where you can make the most of those set pieces. Good service, good organization, second chance, third chance opportunities. That might be how they can really take a stronghold of this game, because Fort Lauderdale United has the run of play, but those are opportunities to be really dangerous.
They're going to get another set piece opportunity here where they can maybe cue some players up into the penalty area as the referee respots the ball for DC. This would very much be against the run of play if DC could find something here, but they've been absorbing a ton of pressure. As we just alluded to, have to take advantage of the opportunities they get tonight. It's going to be taken short. And then Fitch, Gorley let it run. Could be a chance here to play this across. Actually, it's a little too tall of a cross from Bagley. And it runs out of play for a goal kick.
It's just the details and execution. I like that set piece. At first I would think, hey, just serve it into the penalty area, make Fort Lauderdale defend, but that was well executed until that final piece. That has to be on the ground, because if you put it behind the back line, you never know what can happen. Fort Lauderdale defenders facing their own goal, someone running in, it just gives you a chance to put something on frame.
Clipped ahead by Jordan. It falls for Addie McCain. And McCain sends it down the line for Bockham to chase. Bockham again loses her footing, but keeps the ball in play. McCain for Smith. Tried to feed it back through for Bockham, who would continue to run, but it was behind her. That's the other thing that's so impressive about this Fort Lauderdale team, how quickly they go about their attacking business in the final third. But again, just not able to quite get that link-up play required to get a shot away. Look at another chance here, Hamid. And then Smith for Knox. Hamid, this is where she can be very, very dangerous. She tries to take on the shot, it was blocked, and then cleared before any potential follow-ups could occur. And then Gorley with the pressure, trying to give Fort Lauderdale something to think about, but Jordan sweeps it up. Cujo from Bagley. And Guiu. Play continues. Guiu dispossessed by Knox. Knox for Addie McCain, who couldn't get the shot away. Referee, though, did play advantage and brings it back for a free kick. And Constant is going to receive a yellow card for bringing down Felicia Knox.
I think our center official's done really well with a couple advantage plays throughout this first half. He's really timed it well, see the play out, not being too premature with his calls, and I think this is a really good example. Felicia Knox reads this perfectly, steps in, uses her body, decides to continue to play on, and goes in the attack. I love this slip ball. She does it at the last second. Addie McCain's just not able to get a cleaner first touch with all that pressure around her, but still a great opportunity as they draw the foul from Constant.
This is in prime real estate for Fort Lauderdale to make something happen here. This seems prime Jasmine Hamid territory, the way she strikes it with that right boot. She's certainly in the discussion to take this. I think that's fair to say.
I think that makes sense.
Does look like Fort Lauderdale have something planned. As far as a couple of players standing in front of the ball, maybe trying to throw off the DC wall. But it is laid off for Hamid, who sends it out of play. She's a prime candidate in spots like this. You're actually more surprised when she doesn't hit the target.
And no doubt about it, she goes for power on this because she can. I like that they went outside the wall to try to give her a little bit of an opening, but just sails away from her on that, not leaning over the ball. But I like to see that confidence stepping up and trying to get the power around the wall.
And DC trying to play through the pressure. Gorley just able to lay it off. And another coming together on this near side. Knox a bit perplexed. Leo Kalume, our official, wants a word after giving DC the free kick. Because we haven't seen a yellow card brandished, it appears it will just be a word and nothing more than that. And another set-piece opportunity here for DC. We're seemingly growing a little bit more and more into the game as the minutes tick by in this first half. It'll be Colton. Here's the edge of the penalty area. I think Smith gets there first, then McCain follows up really nicely and wins a free kick to alleviate the pressure before Cujo could follow up.
Good defending from Fort Lauderdale, but the service just is lofted up there. It doesn't really give your team a chance. It has to be forcing the back line to face their own goal if you're going to go for that service in behind.
Jordan. Maybe not on the same page with Gordon down that far side. Normally they are, of course. DC will take the throw. About 4 minutes plus stoppage time left in the half. It's going to be another free kick, another talking to here. Leo Kalume wants a word with another Fort Lauderdale player and is going to stop the play to have that conversation with Raji this time. One thing we can also tell you is that another goal has gone in one of the other games going on right now. Carolina have doubled their lead against Brooklyn as the Ascent look to keep themselves firmly atop the USL Super League table. They're well on their way, starting the second half with a 2-0 lead, of course. Tampa Bay still leading Lexington by 3 goals to 0. And DC, through Gorley's hard work, will get a corner on the near side, brought to you by All Year Cooling and Plumbing. Another late first half set-piece opportunity for the Power to try and grab an unlikely lead.
But this is exactly what Gorley does. She may not be involved in that run of play or that possession in the middle third, but she's going to press, she's going to go forward, she's going to create problems, and you generate these opportunities for your team when that occurs.
Ooh, pushing and shoving there. Bockham, who of course is playing her former club tonight, she's going to have a little bit more of a chip on her shoulder. There's no questions about that, but the referee trying to keep the peace inside the penalty area.
Well, and Gorley's trying to get close to Morche, and Baucom's trying to create that barrier just to not let her get in there, because you have to be able to give your goalkeeper that little yard of space to be able to move from her starting position.
Those two continue to go after it as Colton fizzes it in. To the edge of the penalty area, it's Fitch with the attempt. That bounces in pretty comfortably for Morche. Not sure if Fort Lauderdale saw that one coming, but I think they were a bit appreciative of the location of where Colton put that. Made it a bit easier and more comfortable to defend in the end. Smith. He's it all the way back for Ansbro, who nearly slid it all the way through for Knox. Constant on the turn. Tried to thread the needle down this near side. Lindahl sends it out of play.
And the speed of play from Fort Lauderdale is really good in breaking lines. I like that it's improved on the last game, but you can see that DC is starting to figure out the spaces that they're trying to penetrate through. They're committing numbers, and that's the scary part if you're Fort Lauderdale, of all this good play, but if it doesn't turn into a goal, it doesn't matter, and that's the hard part, because they have dominated, but DC is starting to adapt.
The ball went out of play, but Fort Lauderdale were saying that there was a foul in all of that. It looks like they're going to get the decision here. Guiu leaving a leg in there instead of a corner for DC. That's why the Power weren't too thrilled about the decision there. It was a free kick for Fort Lauderdale in the end.
That's a good decision by Ansbro. Start it over. You've either got to look to skip a line when they're starting to get a little bit higher. You can see Bagley stepping on Adrian Jordan there in the far side channel. But you either just keep it, draw them out, and see if spaces present themselves, or you might have to go a little bit more direct.
Morche does send it towards the halfway line. Fitch is there to follow up for DC. And Hamid, who does have to be a bit more careful now on challenges like that. She did slide in. And it's a DC throw as we jump into 2 added minutes at the end of the half here in South Florida. And Sean St. Jacques, Casey White, our entire crew. This game has kind of ebbed and flowed. Fort Lauderdale have certainly had the better of it so far, but DC have continued to stick around in this game. They're looking to grab an unlikely lead here at the end of the half, but Bagley is beaten to it. Great work by Shania Gordon. She gets a little lucky as well as that slid underneath Cujo, but comes back with DC here. It's clipped over the top. Again, Fort Lauderdale have it covered, and Cujo resets. Lovely skill there on the far side. Kurusaki's ball into the middle is headed away. Jordan follows up. Fitch will give chase. Final seconds of the half. It's a DC throw. Helped along by Colton, and Gorley has done the yeoman's work in this first half. Constant follows up. It's another throw.
But DC's building into the game. This is what we were talking about earlier. They stay in it. They gain a little more confidence, because as a pro, you know that there's going to be times where you have the ball, where you don't have the ball, and you got to figure it out.
Fitch down the line. And then it was crossed into the middle. Again, DC just about able to keep it alive here in the final seconds of the half. Yet another throw-in upcoming. Hamid back to help. As in the end, Guiu couldn't do too much with it. Raji. Lovely ball out to the far side for Gordon. Is there enough time for maybe one more Fort Lauderdale chance? Gordon forced to retreat. And then Ansbro all the way back to Morche as the 2 minutes are up. It's up to the referee, though, how much longer we continue in this first half. Morche assesses the scene. Ansbro all the way back again for Morche. Lindahl is there to help as This has been inviting a little bit of DC pressure here. And as Morshea does clear it forward, that is the end of the half. Well, a lot of huffing and puffing for Fort Lauderdale, but the house remains intact for DC on the defensive side of things, and the power started to gain a bit of power into the game as the match moved along, Casey.
Even though DC was not the team the majority in possession, you know that from watching the first half, it's still 0-0. So the compact defensive shape still working for them, starting to find a little bit of space, getting a few set pieces. But Fort Lauderdale, I'll tell you what, they look good through that middle third, and I like the way they're connecting.
Well, a really interesting half, no questions about that. We're joined pitchside by Fort Lauderdale United's Addie McCain. Addie, thanks so much for taking a few moments to spend some time with us. First and foremost, your coach wanted a little bit more from you guys after the last performance. How do you think the effort, the desire, and the play has gone for your team in the first half?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted more for ourselves. After you lose a game, you have to have a response, and I think it's been good. I think we can get some more shots off. We've had the ball. We've been in their attacking half. We now have to create some better chances for ourselves.
And definitely through that central channel, Addie, the off-ball movement, the connectivity of your midfield and your front runners has been really good. What can you say about your attacking fluidity and what you guys have done in possession?
Yeah, like I said, I think we've had the ball more than they have, which is always good. And I think our goal the past couple weeks have been to connect as a front 3, 4, 5. So we've been really focused on that in training, and I think it's showing tonight. But like I said, the quality in front of goal has to be better. You can't let a team like this hang around.
Addie, thanks as always for your time, and best of luck in the second half.
For sure, thank you.
Addie McCain, kind enough to join us from Fort Lauderdale United as these two teams locked at a stalemate at the half here on Peacock. 0-0 is the scoreline, but of course still a big 45 minutes still to come. We'll look around the league and do a bunch more coming up at the break.
Success doesn't come easy. It takes grit, hustle, and relentless effort. Every step forward brings you closer to greatness. This is your moment. Elevate your game. El Jimador Spiked Bebidas.
Corbin defending. Ramirez is in behind the keeper and scores!
Marley Canal is with the shot!
Cross, sprinter team tapped home! Bedoya launches and tucks it into the top right-hand corner. Whoa! Save man by Equalizing.
We all have goals. But let's be honest. Most of us aren't going to be professional athletes. But if your goal is to finish your degree, we can help. Come to a university that puts your goals first. Bellevue University, your partner in finishing goals.
With over 2 decades of experience in the payment industry, Beyond Bankcard is more than just a payment processor. We are a partner dedicated to your success. Our mission is simple: to provide innovative, flexible payment processing solutions tailored to meet your needs.
We partner up with various companies, restaurants, retail, smoke shops, convenience store, you name it, we have the POS system for it.
Whether it's tools we provide or the relationships we nurture, Beyond Bankcard is here to power your payment solutions.
What does it mean to feel welcome? To not only be cared for, but to be cared about, to trust. At Baptist Health, this is the warmer side of care. So welcome to being treated with a human touch, where your best interest is our best interest. Here, we advance innovation and treatments through research while educating the next generation of experts close to home. Welcome to the warmer side of care. Welcome to Baptist Health.
Nobody wants a new roof. But when a storm hits, it's about protecting what matters most. With over 30 years of experience and 3 generations of roofing professionals, Florida Coast Contracting and Roofing is the name families trust to safeguard their homes. No matter the size, scope, or style of the project, Florida Coast Contracting and Roofing brings unmatched expertise, precision, and care to every single roof we touch. Our family, here for your family, every step of the way.
Tonight's halftime is presented by iHeartRadio. Sean St. Jacques, Casey White, our entire crew. Happy to have you back here with us on Peacock. It is 0-0 between Fort Lauderdale and DC Power. Time to take a look around the rest of the USL Super League, starting with our news and notes. Of course, big news with Sporting Jacks naming a new head coach for its inaugural season. Stacey Bala announces the expansion science coach, the former Vanderbilt head coach there, gets the job with Sporting Jacks. Exciting to see that. And then, well, Mia Corbin for Carolina, Player of the Month. With 4 goals in March, she's been red hot as of late.
She has, and 4 goals in 1 month is a lot, so rightfully deserved there. And then in this FIFA international window, 17 Super League players called up to represent their countries. That's exciting for the league, exciting for these players to get that international experience.
Huge, huge deal. Can't stress that enough. The opportunities that these players have been getting, not just in the Super League, but with their national teams as well.
The month of March, we saw some fantastic finishes, and the awards are out. We break down who we thought really deserved to get recognized this past month. Plus, Tampa Bay's Tash Flint joins the show to break down her recent success.
Not only that, but we talk about the new kid on the block, the most recent hires, including a head coach from Sporting Jacks. And if that's not enough, we turn into a golf show and give you our master selection this week.
Let's take a look at the out-of-town scores presented by Delta Airlines. And so far, so good for Carolina and Tampa Bay, both Casey up by 2 goals in the second half.
Well, for Tampa Bay, that's big, trying to push that playoff line, put pressure on Fort Lauderdale United, Brooklyn FC, and Carolina Ascent, just continuing to climb those standings.
It's starting to feel like the early weeks of the season when no one could beat Carolina Ascent. They're really strong again, and they're strong again at the right time of the season during the stretch run of this USL Super League campaign. Well, again, we'll keep you up to date on those scores, and of course the late game coming up between Spokane and Dallas. But for now, it is 0-0 in our game here in South Florida. We will have highlights and stats from the first half coming up in just a few moments. Welcome back, everybody. Sean St. Jacques, Casey White here with you. It is 0-0 between Fort Lauderdale and DC Power here on Peacock in the USL Super League. Still a big 45 minutes to come, but first and foremost, let's look back at the first half highlights presented by Blue Water Books and Charts. And of course, it really was Fort Lauderdale on the front foot for a vast majority of the half, and Julian Bockham had a couple of close calls.
Very close, and she's trying to penetrate in that space behind lots of numbers running off her in that 9 position. She just gets around it a little bit too much here, but you like when your center forward is looking to create opportunities themselves and go to goal, and that's certainly what she did early on in this game. Then in the 17th minute, it was Hamid getting into the action here, taking on in the 1v1, and she looks to change the point of attack. Felicia Knox again, look at that ball in behind. It springs Bockham, this time trying to go for power to the near post, is not able to connect and force a save from Aquino.
Yeah, those are two of the best Fort Lauderdale chances in the first half. They came pretty early on, and then, really, the first 20-25 minutes, DC had a tough time clearing their lines, and that led to more United opportunities.
But connection was the name of the game for Fort Lauderdale United right here, playing off one another. A little skill there, the back heel from Hamid, the strike from Knox again. That time Aquino does have to come up with the save, but it's a suffocating pressure too in the counter press from Fort Lauderdale United that was so effective. Addie McCain gets an opportunity, a shot, and then Hamid so close right off the post, goes over Aquino, just not able to convert in that moment.
Yeah, that'll probably go down as the best chance either side had in the first 45 minutes. Hamid coming very, very close, and then DC sort of grew into the game after that, the last 10-15 minutes. But you look at the Beyond Banker halftime stats, and they would tell you, as Addie McCain had alluded to us, Fort Lauderdale had more of the ball. They certainly did more with the ball.
They did. They had the 64% possession, but it was in their attacking half. It was effective. It has to turn into shots and shots on target for them. For DC, they got to figure out a way to get forward.
No score at the half between United and DC Powder. This game having a lot of playoff implications. We'll take a break. The second half on Peacock is coming up next. Welcome back, everybody. Sean St. Jacques, Casey White, our entire crew about to get the second half started here on Peacock between DC Power and tonight's host, Fort Lauderdale United. It did look like DC Power had made an alteration for the start of the second half. We'll get official confirmation on that in a moment as Jorian Bockham chats up Aleo Kalume, our center referee. The referee has been very active, been very interpersonal with the players, and it's always trying to make the referee a side note. The referees don't want to be the main storyline of the game, but Aleo Kalume has done very well so far, handling a couple of gray area kind of moments, let's say.
I think he has, and definitely done well with those advantage plays, and with the way Fort Lauderdale's playing, they're needing that because they're playing off each other so well.
Again, Fort Lauderdale very strong at times in that first half. DC, though, absorbing the pressure, getting a little bit of late first half momentum. And as Addie McCain talked to us when we caught up with her at halftime, Fort Lauderdale has to find some goals in this second half to, as you put it, Casey, pay off all the good possession and opportunities that they've had in this first, now second half. Does look like Grace Yango is out there for DC Power. That was the change that we were alluding to. That is, I believe, the only change at the start of the second half for DC Power.
A substitution for DC Power. Coming on is number 10, Janet Yengo. Replacing number 6, Jennifer Cujo.
And they just announced it as well. Cujo off, Yengo on for DC. We're on the front foot at the start of this second half. A chance to cross this into the middle, and there's the opening goal. Touched in by Gianna Gorley. 45 seconds into the start of the second half. And against the run of play, DC Power have the lead in South Florida.
Well, we talked about this earlier. Addison McCain at halftime talked about it. You have to, out of your possession, have it pay off, or this is what can happen. You keep a team in it. Fitch does incredibly well. Kurosaki springs her into the outside channel, looking to takes on into this wide space, beats Lindahl in this moment, puts it into a dangerous area, and Gorley with a great touch gets just a shoulder in front of her defender. But I like this build-up play. The wide channel is what they need to expose, and they do it in this moment by creating a 1v1 isolation, and it's a great touch for a finish with a well-timed run from the center forward.
Talk about carrying over some momentum from the first half into the second half. It's Gorley's 4th goal in the Super League this season. It's just DC's 15th goal in the Super League this season. And Fort Lauderdale are behind again in the USL Super League. Fort Lauderdale now in desperate need of a response. Throw into McCain, he's dealt with and cleared. Only as far as Jordan. And it was just helped along looking for McCain, and there was a hold back there. Referee again all over it, and it's a free kick for United.
And just coming through the back of Felicia Knox, she's really smart, just putting her body in front. She's not going anywhere, so you don't want to commit that foul and just give them this opportunity. But credit DC, I think in the first half, Fort Lauderdale United was definitely the dominant team, but it only turning to four shots was kind of shocking, to be quite honest with you, because the play was so effective.
Well, the last time DC were here, they scored the winner in stoppage time. At the end of the game, Anna Bagley winning it. Could they end this long stretch without a win in the place where they last got a victory back in November? Does Fort Lauderdale have a few moments up their sleeves? Felicia Knox will take this set piece. 3 in the wall for DC. And Knox clips it into a congested area, and it is nudged out of play. It's going to be a Fort Lauderdale corner. Of course, corners are presented by All Year Cooling and Plumbing. Knox will take the corner here. Fort Lauderdale in need of a response. And Knox fizzes one in there, and it's headed right back out for another All Year Cooling and Plumbing corner in quick succession.
It's time for Fort Lauderdale.
Gianna Gorley just continues to do the work on both ends for DC. Here comes the second try on the corner. And Knox floats it in, it's headed off the bar, and it's headed in. Jasmine Hamid rides into the rescue for Fort Lauderdale. And just like that, it's 1-1.
Well, Felicia Knox is known for her service, and she gets 3 opportunities from a free kick, then 2 corner kicks. You can't let her have that many opportunities. She gets it right on this 3rd one. It's struck well. It's going right into the middle of the 6th. And look at Jasmine Hamid just rising above, making sure that she times it perfectly. I love this, and I love the passion after the goal of, hey, let's get back in this, and let's continue to go. I love that from the forward.
It's Hamid's 8th Super League goal of the season. She's now just 1 off the Golden Boot lead coming into the night, which of course was partially held by her teammate Addie McCain. And just as quickly as DC got the lead, they're very quickly pegged back.
Well, it's really interesting based on the first half of play and how it all went down. The whole first half you thought Fort Lauderdale United is going to get a goal through the run of play if they get a goal, and they're going to need to rely on set pieces, DC Power. Well, it was the exact opposite. DC Power does it in the run of play coming out in the second half, and then Fort Lauderdale is forced to use a set piece opportunity to equalize. But that's just football. It happens that way, and now we have a whole new game. It's going to be interesting to see how each of these teams settle in from a tactical perspective, because it is still a long second half to go.
What a back and forth at the start of this second half. This is clipped down the line. Backham will not get there, and it's a throw-in for DC. Gives us time to tell you that Select is the official match ball supplier of the USL Super League and many elite leagues throughout Europe. Visit us.select-sport.com for the latest Select product specials and more. Select is the player's choice. Backham plays it across. Couple of challenges in there for DC. They do just about clear it, but at the expense of a Fort Lauderdale throw.
But that's why there's 3 center backs for DC, because Constant was able to cover. So Backham has to drive and draw Constant out. She had already beaten Wolfbauer, draw her out, then it's a pass across frame. Easier said than done, but that's what you want from your center forward, is to draw out the extra center back.
Gordon comes off of her last. It's a DC throw. Kurosaki just poking it down the line, and it was just behind her on the return feed from Gorley, it looked like. And the attack fizzles out for DC Power. And Backham trying to get on the turn there. Fort Lauderdale will keep it as they try to quickly turn around what was briefly a 1-0 deficit. Hope you didn't take too long getting your snacks at halftime. You've missed all the fun at the start of the second half here on Peacock. Raji looking for Hamid on the far side. It's going to skip just past her. And then Backham going to ground to try to keep the ball in play. DC gets the possession back.
One of the things that I think was really positive from DC, how they started this second half, was we talked about the wide spaces against a 3-back of Fort Lauderdale United. That was a space that they couldn't expose in the first half. They did it immediately, and they were able to execute in the final third for their goal. So that's something that I think they can still keep going to. Change the point of attack when you get it and look to spring players wide.
How will DC respond after getting a lead and quickly seeing it fade away? Hamid clips this into the middle. Good touch by Constant to just keep it out of harm's way. Guillou and company able to move it forward. Gorley's hold-up play. Kurosaki. Jeanette Yango. Haven't seen a lot of this. DC knocking the ball around in possession. Good spell of play there. Kurosaki thought she was held up by Gordon, but the ball trickles out of play, and I think the referee is just going to give a throw in here. Felicia Knox got the assist on the Hamid equalizer. It's her 3rd assist of the USL Super League season. Here was the last sequence with Kurosaki and Gordon. From the throw, McCain tried to help it along for Backham. And then a whistle will stop the play there. It's a free kick.
Well, it's a little bit disjointed right now, just as a game in general. I think that plays into DC. feeling like they can get into the game more. It looked very fluid in the first half from Fort Lauderdale United. And I don't think Fort Lauderdale's playing bad by any means, but DC is just trying to be a little bit more disruptive. Yango coming in, her mobility in there and covering ground. I think she's provided something coming to the midfield. I mean, that's a player just a couple games ago that has come in up top and in the wide spaces. So very versatile, can cover a lot of ground, which makes a difference against a team that's trying to overload the central channel.
McCain went around the corner to Bockham, who holds up the play, but cannot get the return from Taylor Smith. And with all 8 teams in action, we've been keeping an eye on the other games. We've been keeping an eye on the live table as well. Again, we haven't had too many changes since we last checked in. Brooklyn, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa Bay would still all be on 33 points. Although, to be fair, all 3 of those teams have had a different number of games played so far this season. So some games in hand, particularly for Fort Lauderdale in the mix there, as Knox is tripped up by Yango. And it's a United free kick. Meanwhile, Carolina and Sen have continued to score goals since we last checked in. They're 5-0 up on Brooklyn. Still 3-1 Tampa Bay over Lexington. So those games getting towards the conclusion. Still a long way to go here in South Florida. 1-1 with Fort Lauderdale looking for their first lead of the night. Can Knox pick someone else out? It's clipped towards the back stick. It's a great header centrally. And the goalkeeper surely got the hands on the ball first before Bockham barreled in to Morgan Aquino. I think the free kick has been given in DC's favor.
Well, Hamid makes the most of this service, but there's a much more dangerous area this ball could be served, which is a little bit more central. That still invites Aquino to come out, but she's going to be hesitant. This one's really wide, but Hamid does a really good job to get it back across frame. Aquino comes out and does have her hands on the ball. Hadn't secured it necessarily, but you got to protect the goalkeeper in that moment because her eyes are on the ball. She's not able to protect herself. I don't fault Bockham at all, though. You want to try it. There could be a bobble. That's what you want your center forward doing, being optimistic around goal.
We got tickets, VIP access.
Not for the first time tonight. Aquino might need a moment here before the ball is put back into play.
Before the end of the game.
Not the best lip reader in the world, but I think she said she's good, so ready to put the ball back into the field of play. Ansbro does really well to try to poke that back through. Constant, who's also on a yellow card, collides with Hamid. Looks to have won the challenge fairly. And the Power have it coming back up the other end with Colton. Colton with an early ball. Ricochets out for a throw-in off of Lindahl.
DC is definitely trying to isolate Lindahl in that wide channel because there's just not natural cover from Ansbro. So whether it's Colton or Fitch looking to get forward, that's something Fort Lauderdale is going to have to address in the final third.
Throw-in was taken quickly here. And it was just played across, but touched away from Kurosaki before she could really look up and take aim. Then McCain turns it over. And then the ball back in looking for Gorley was nowhere near where it needed to be. But some more promising Power build-up in the final third as they look to get their lead back.
Well, Anna Bagley's a lot higher. Kurosaki is tucked into the midfield even more so, and Colton's a little bit higher on that far side. So a little bit of a change of shape. Nothing crazy, just a couple more yards here or there and some players playing in different spaces, but it gives DC a little bit more natural width to match up 3v3.
Kurosaki does really well there. Eludes a couple of challenges, and a first-time ball is struck. Right on target, but right at Morshey. McCain. Early ball finds Bockham. Jorian Bockham cuts it in field. Waits for more blue shirts. Bockham maybe goes on her own here and tries to shoot. Blocked out of play by Wolfbauer, and it will be another all-year cooling and plumbing corner.
Really good patient defending in the 1v1 by Wolfbauer. I like it more from Bockham being able to have a little bit more in the attack as we take a look at the last opportunity from Fitch getting up in the wide space. They're really trying to create those 2v1s versus Lindahl, but I think Fort Lauderdale's rewarded on this side because Bockham didn't see any runners, was a little bit more patient than we've seen her throughout the game so far.
Knox from the corner. Another really good ball in, and again, Aquino was hesitating there. Luckily for her, there were teammates in front, and then Hamid, who has to be careful on the yellow card, picks up the foul.
On first glance, there didn't really look to be a lot in that, and I know our center official is going to be potentially talking to them, but there is a player down in this moment, so it may be something a little bit closer that something really interesting happened. Emily Colton is the one chasing. Hamid's going through. There was a little bit of a slight bump, but it was almost the way that Colton fell was a bit more awkward than the actual challenge.
It almost looked like Colton initiated the contact, which professional players do all the time, of course.
She's in her defensive final third. You want to try to get that path to the ball protected. I think Hamid would probably feel a little bit hard done by on that one, but to your point earlier, it has to be a little bit careful because Colton does go down. She's on the yellow card, but I still subscribe to the, hey, continue to press, continue the mentality, especially in your attacking third, because you can afford to have fouls in that area, get your team back and organize.
Just had a brief look there at Tyrone Mears, who maybe didn't love the way the second half started, conceding 45 seconds in to Gianna Gorley, but since then, after DC took the lead, it's been a really good response from Fort Lauderdale. The Hamid equalizer, and then Fort Lauderdale kind of picked up where they left off. After the first half, they looked for more and more opportunities to try to get what would be a huge 3 points for them in this Super League playoff chase.
Well, and this is what's so great about the league is you have a team like DC who has had its struggles this year, causing Fort Lauderdale to go, okay, hey, we're really gonna have to fight for this playoff spot. And even though to the eye test, Fort Lauderdale United for the majority of this game has been the team in control, DC Power's compact shape, their discipline, especially their discipline around their goal and their final third defensively has been really good. It kept them in that first half, and then they built their way into the game. But Fort Lauderdale United still playing well, still has some really good opportunities. It's just gonna really have to be earned if they want that 3 points.
A substitution for your Fort Lauderdale United.
Fort Lauderdale, meanwhile, are going to make an alteration here. Kiara Locklear is getting set to come on. And Daria Raji is going to exit for United. Locklear gets her final marching orders.
This will be really interesting because she's another central forward type personality. Raji is a player that's more in that holding mid position. So does Addie McCain drop a little bit deeper, and then Locklear comes up into that midfield shape with Felicia Knox. Does Bockham stay high? Does she come into the midfield shape? So this will change things a little bit from a dynamic perspective to see what they do, not only personnel-wise with what Locklear can do going behind the back line, but also will they stay in that three-back shape?
There's the confirmation of the substitution. Substitutions are brought to you by Omega XL Sport. Well, Casey, you and I were talking off the air when we first saw the lineups, and one of the first things you said, not to quote you, but you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Kiara Locklear got a good amount of run here tonight, and you were right, as always.
And, as always, I love that. Locklear was very good in the last game at times. They didn't have a lot of attack for Lauderdale United against Tampa Bay, but she was really active, really industrious up top. And I think it just provides a little bit of a different look to Dorian Bockham, and now you're seeing them on the field together, which is incredibly dangerous if you're a back line to see both of those players.
More good pressure here from Fort Lauderdale. Bockham down the line for Knox. And then Knox to the byline, touched out of play by Mernon. That's going to be another all-year cooling and plumbing corner, it appears, for Fort Lauderdale United. And Knox wants it short. And Knoxie's going to see it get played past her here. Then it's a collision afterwards before Locklear has to get her first touch.
And we'll just take a look back at this. It was a misplay, a mishap right there. They're alert to it. Guiu gets fouled by Knox. Does really well just to get her body in front, draw the foul, and Knox has to slow down play in that moment. Otherwise, it's a counterattack the opposite way.
Oh, it looks like this corner is going to be retaken, it appears.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder what happened in that corner, because now they get another opportunity, and actually DC defended it well.
I wonder if the ball wasn't all on the arc. The
That's
referees are very on top of it when it comes to that. And it ends up giving Fort Lauderdale a secondary chance here, one that is headed just about off the line.
You did see the flag actually moving in that corner as the play started, so I'm assuming that is what it was.
All year cooling and plumbing corner. Knox has been brilliant with the service. That was no different. Hamid, a diving attempt. Couldn't get any contact on it. And then a cynical challenge from Locklear. Free kick for DC.
And it's a good service again from Knox, going to that back post area. That's definitely her target area. Hamid almost gets on the inside shoulder, and actually does. Emily Colton just does well to use the momentum to shield her out in that moment out of danger.
Every Wednesday, listen to USL Super League Game Week, a deep dive into all things Super League, with hosts Marion Crowder and Anna Whitty. Follow along all season on the Sirius XM app. We had a little teaser earlier where apparently Marion and Anna gave their Masters picks.
Very interested to see how good they
were.
I
wonder if those aged well. We'll may have to go back and check that.
We'll see.
At the end of the weekend. Just over 22 minutes to go here. Again, a game where if Fort Lauderdale drops points, again, they do have games in hand, of course. That's where Tyrone Mears' side have a little bit of room to work with down the stretch of this USL Super League season. But I do hear coaches talk a lot about rather have the points in hand, not necessarily the games in hand. And any opportunity for Fort Lauderdale to drop points could open the door for an in-state rival, let's say the Tampa Bay Sun. Of course, Brooklyn trying to hold on in that top four as well.
Well, you can definitely shape how you have perspective and everything based on your results. So, okay, we still have games in hand if we don't get the points, but how nice would it be to have a game in hand, 2 games in hand, and also get the points? Because that's definitely what a coach wants, because you just create a little bit more of that buffer for a misstep, things like that. So taking each game at a time and not even thinking about that once you're in, it's really important as a staff and as the players approaching the game.
Guiu has it here for DC, plays it out to the far side. Colton fizzes it across. Oh, and it does get touched down, but in the end, Morche was able to read it after the sting was knocked out of it by Ansbro. A good bit of build-up from DC, but again, no end product. Guiu on the case again, but McCain beats her to it. Yango trying to find Fitch. And a good tussle between Fitch and Hamid, one that Hamid in the end just about wins and gets the throw.
And DC has definitely shifted into more of a 4-2-3-1 and how they press, and so they got that natural width now from Colton and Bagley, and Fitch is doing extremely well to get forward. She's always looking to have this forward run. Hamid is now having to defend. There's a little bit of a battle right here. She was already out of bounds when that confrontation occurred, but we're seeing Fitch look to get forward, and that unsettles Fort Lauderdale just a tiny bit in thinking she might run into this wide space, and we have to be aware.
This ball's looped over the top, looking for Locklear, who was in an offside position. Oh, and then the ball was kicked away. Will we see a yellow card come out here, potentially? I think Locklear got booked for that, for delaying a DC restart. It's also something that's been cracked down on a lot more this season.
And as that happens, you're going to see players less and less doing that, so the consistency of it, I'm glad to see that yellow card in that moment because it just delays everything. And something we're seeing from Locklear, she's very aggressive going forward. I like that mentality from her. It allows Bockham to come back into midfield, and we are seeing that Addie McCain's gone into more of that playmaking central midfield role. So now Fort Lauderdale is having to figure out that connectivity piece again with some personnel changes and how they can connect going forward in the central area.
Well, Hamid thought she was fouled there. McCain then steps in. Keep Fort Lauderdale on the front foot. And on this near side, good hustle to keep it in by Shania Gordon. Gordon cutting in field. And trying to return the favor to Smith, who just about kept that in, but couldn't pick out a teammate in the middle. And McCain wins a throw-in off the back of that. And then takes it very quickly. In the end, Locklear, second best. Fort Lauderdale will settle for a throw. 19 minutes left for one of these two teams to find a winner. Are we going to be set up for some late South Florida drama, just like last time DC was here back in November? Of course, that game, November 23rd, 2024, we talked about it. That was the last time DC won in the USL Super League. Trying to end a 7-game run without a victory. It's taken them into the second half of the season and yet to see them win.
What can be incredibly difficult as they build into this game, they send more numbers forward, so then your compact defensive shape is really, really tough to get back into. So with the risk could come reward, but it's extra risky, and you're leaving spaces for Fort Lauderdale to potentially go and penetrate forward. So to see how they manage that the last 18 minutes and change will be interesting. How much risk are they willing to put in to try to get the win?
Another all-year cooling and plumbing corner, won by Bockham. Has taken short to Knox. Back for Smith. DC were all over that. A little surprised they went away from the great Knox service that has yielded, of course, the goal and other good chances for Fort Lauderdale in this second half. She's been putting it in a great spot every time she's delivered.
And I agree, I think it needs to be served. And I like the composure that they show on these short corners, but it's almost like too slow. You gotta still be able to get it into an area that's dangerous. That one isn't a great opportunity, but hey, if something's working, continue to do it. And they've been able to be dangerous every time the ball has been served into the penalty area.
DC has not exactly had an answer yet for the Felicia Knox services from set pieces tonight. Phil Nana and his group still feel there's time left for them to once again come here and steal the points. Mernon for Yango, and Yango didn't have too much room to work with, but she steps right back in to help out Bagley. And Bagley slides it through here for Colton. Colton on the cutback is not able to take the ball with her. She's dispossessed. Cleared only as far as Yango. And Giyu gives it away to Locklear, and Hamid is moving forward, but Constant comes up with a huge intervention for DC Power. Now Smith moves it ahead. Here's Hamid. Jasmine Hamid goes for goal. And anytime she strikes it from long range, you wonder where it's going to end up.
Well, I don't think we've seen a better time tackle than what we saw from Claire Constant in that moment, because Hamid was in. And this is almost a half chance. I don't know if she fully commits to this shot or she's trying to be deceptive by looking and then going for goal, but it's not a bad opportunity. If she puts her foot through it a little bit more, I think that one could test Aquino.
To borrow a phrase from basketball, if she's on the field, she's in range, Jasmine Hamid.
Very true.
She's not afraid to take it on from anywhere. Here's Gordon. And Gordon trying to find Locklear with an early ball. Gordon gets involved again. Smith now trying to find Locklear. Mernon steps in for DC. And it was helped along from Kurosaki, and it's a free kick for the Power with 15 minutes left.
And it's an understated performance from Shania Gordon, but I really like what she's done in this game. She's playing a very critical role of having to get into an out-of-possession defensive shape on the back line, but still expected to go forward in the wing space. It's a really nice tactical approach from Tyrone Mears. It's just not turning into opportunities necessarily in the attacking third, but it's starting to come more. Shania Gordon's a big part of that, even though she's not able to get forward too often.
Ball pinballed around for a moment there. Wolfbauer plays it back for Mernon. And Constant threads the needle nicely for Colton, but it's won back by McCain. Knox dispossessed. And then it's an early ball towards the edge of the penalty area for Bagley, who's offside. Out of play. Still very much on a knife edge here down the stretch. Hamid. Backham. Back for Jasmine Hamid, not quite. It falls for a chance for Locklear. It was touched away by Constant, who again is in the right place at the right time for DC. You thought for a moment that Locklear was going to let it fly right away, but that extra touch gave Claire Constant the slide in. And
Wolfbauer and Constant have come up with very well-timed tackles. They've been patient, but they've also been aggressive when they've needed to, and they've just done incredibly well. You can't have great collective defending shape without those individual responsibilities also being there.
The two earlier games have gone final. Carolina beating Brooklyn by 5-0, and Tampa Bay beating Lexington by 4-1. So the Sun have gotten their points that they need to keep pace in the playoff chase. And they'll be hoping that DC could do them a little bit of a favor here by holding, if not beating, Fort Lauderdale here tonight, but there's still time left to change it. It looks like another substitution is being prepared here, two of them, as a matter of fact. Tati Fung and Naya Christopher are getting set to come on, and that's going to be it for Jorian Backham against her former club here tonight. And Smith is also going to make way. So Smith and Backham are off, Fung and Christopher are on. Both the changes brought to you by Omega XL Sport, and that leaves Tyrone Mears with 2 changes remaining. Here's Christopher. Ooh, Christopher cut it back. It maybe came off her arm. DC were appealing. Power get back on it. And an early ball played down this near side for Gianna Gorley. Gorley's been excellent at times tonight. More good hold-up play. And she switches the point of the attack out wide for Fitch, who finds Colton. And Colton is not going to get there because of the good defending by Ansbro.
Really smart from Ansbro, really patient in that moment. But you're right, I like what Gorley's doing. She can penetrate in behind, and that's what she's really good at, but I like her hold-up play as well.
Here comes a DC sub. That's going to be it for Emily Colton. Also gave a very good effort for the Power tonight. Carly Friles is going to come on to take her place. Still 10 minutes left, and it's gone between these two teams this season. Would not put it past them for more late drama. Mernon under pressure. Yango is found in a sea of blue shirts. Mernon with a little Travella cross to get it out of harm's way, and then Locklear follows up. It deflects high into the air. Locklear looks to continue to push it forward. Constant with a strong header to get it out of harm's way.
Great defending from Constant. That's a veteran move right there when you're feeling off the pressure and then you still decide to head it back to your goalkeeper with all that pressure on you. Just really good from her.
Locklear almost by herself, putting DC under some pressure again, and wins a corner on top of all that. A one-woman wrecking crew at the back. It's an all-year cooling and plumbing corner just off the back of Locklear's extra effort.
It was almost one pass too many. You got to credit Locklear for buzzing around. That's what she does, but also a little bit smarter in decision-making, getting it out after you've already beat the pressure instead of coming back into it.
Felicia Knox will take the corner. She's been excellent tonight. Puts in another good ball here, looking for McCain. Missed everybody in the end. McCain thought she was being held. Lindahl, clever. And the service was really good, but it's cushioned out for another corner on the back stick.
It's time for Fort Lauderdale United.
This is great feet right here from Lindahl. The one touch to set her up, goes right by her, uses her momentum. A great ball. Fitch probably could have let that go, but you don't know if someone's running in behind, so smart from her to play it safe and flick it on.
Another all-year cooling and plumbing corner. Can Fort Lauderdale get their first lead of the night? Knox again. Another high arcer. It's McCain's header! And then it's off the board from Christopher. Fung resets. How close was Nia Christopher to giving Fort Lauderdale the lead? Hit it flush off the frame. And then Hamid was on the other end of it trying to keep it in play. It's a goal kick after a Christopher close call.
And Addison McCain reads that initial service very well. It floats, and Addison McCain comes off the backside shoulder, comes in, finds it, keeps it alive. Right there, a lot of fighting in front. It's Locklear, and then Nia Christopher just bangs it off the crossbar. It was bouncing up, so it's really hard in all that traffic to get up and over the ball to get it under the crossbar, but a really good opportunity from her in the penalty area.
DC have been living dangerously on some of these set pieces, particularly in the second half. Seemingly every time Knox puts it into the penalty area, a chance is created. And Fort Lauderdale will keep on pushing with another throw-in on the far side. Again, the throw-in looking for Locklear. They're cleared upfield. It's headed back and forth. DC will clear it with Wolfbauer. And Jordan resets. 6 minutes plus stoppage time left. A game that has a lot of playoff implications for Fort Lauderdale's season. Christopher was the target. Out for a throw it goes. Fort Lauderdale have been looking for that breakthrough moment all night. DC have just been able to hold them off. Fung for Christopher. And Christopher is stopped by Yango. It's a free kick.
Yango, for me, has been a difference maker for DC coming in the second half. Just her mobility defensively. She's just shaking things up a little bit in there, covering a lot of ground, and that's what's needed because there's that natural 4v3 in the midfield. So you need a player that's covering that ground. She's done incredibly well, drawing the foul as well in that moment.
Another change here for DC. Well, there won't be any more Bagley heroics this time. She'll be taken out. Charlie Escort is going to take her place. That leaves Phil Nana with 2 changes left and 5 minutes plus stoppage time left. One of these 2 teams going to find a late winner. Feliz was trying to get it right back into the field of play, but Gordon is slow to get up here for Fort Lauderdale. And the referee will wave on some medical assistance. We haven't had an official second half cooling break. This has kind of turned into a hydro stoppage here.
Take advantage of it.
4 minutes in stoppages left, and well, Tyrone Mears potentially staring a 3rd game in a row in the face without a win for Fort Lauderdale. And DC, yes, it would be an 8th game in a row without a win for them. Considering how good Fort Lauderdale had been at home this season, it would be a really, really good point for Phil Nana if they can get it. That's still a big if.
Right, still plenty of time left for both of these sides, and on the flip side, Fort Lauderdale, you got to secure it too. So DC could steal a goal, you just never know. So I think it's really difficult. And look, they're professionals, so they want the 3 points no matter how you can get it, whether it looks pretty, whether it doesn't. Every team wants 3 points. But I will say for Tyrone Mears, the play has increased from the last game, and it has been better. The energy, the intensity, the connectivity, all the things that we spoke to him about has been better. So there's still a stretch to go. They're in a good position if this is only a tie and only 1 point.
Tyrone Mears told us we have to try to keep it positive as well. It was a 9-game unbeaten run that led into that Tampa Bay defeat. It has been more on the positive side, much more on the positive side for Fort Lauderdale than the alternative. They would certainly feel like they left a bit on the table here if they cannot secure the 3 points. But there's still time for some late drama. Rosaki tried to keep it in play unsuccessfully. And it is a goal kick for Fort Lauderdale as Gordon is allowed to come back onto the field.
I'll tell you what, I like the combination of Kurosaki underneath Gorley as well. We haven't really talked about it much in this game because she's just been so composed on the ball, and when they have had spells of possession, it's usually been through her feet.
This is McCain. Some time and space here for Jordan. Christopher. McCain threads it through here, and then it's played further along, looking for Locklear. And Locklear is nudged off it. Fort Lauderdale were looking for a foul there, but Wolfbauer wins a goal kick.
Well, it looks kind of familiar to what we saw Lindahl do in the first half that I said I think's the foul. I think that one is too from Wolfbauer. When someone has the positioning there, they're running, they can't brace themselves, and there's no attempt really at the ball, just a nudge. It's a strong foul from a defender, but I don't mind it, but I still think that goes to the attacker in that moment.
And it goes DC's way. They're able to clear their lines. Gorley just trying to hook it forward for Escort. And then did the ball go out of play? Yes, it did. Just before Fort Lauderdale were able to clear it. So it's going to be a DC throw as we are well into the final minute of the 90. Wolfbauer, who's been really strong tonight, gets it clear. Flies down the line. Gorley, who's also been excellent, holds up the play and then tries to sweep it into the penalty area, but nobody there in a white shirt, and it's a goal kick for United. Well, the await confirmation, but we've just been told there's expected to be quite a bit of stoppage time at the end of this one. So a lot of chances for some late twists.
I think if you're both teams, you want a chance to win this game. DC, with the season that they've had, like, to get 3 points would be a big boost for them. And then Fort Lauderdale, who's in that playoff race, they want 3 points. So I could see both of these teams really trying to push end to end if there's this extra time added on.
And it's the number we were told. It's going to be 7 added minutes left to play. And Fort Lauderdale are not going to waste any time trying to find Locklear. And then it's cleared away before a potential Christopher follow-up. Knox will take it. Knox for Gordon. Gordon's ball across. It's cushioned down towards Locklear by Hamid. But it goes all the way through to Morgan Aquino.
I'm a little surprised Hamid didn't go for goal now, but she was leaning away, so I like the thought process of just nodding it down into the path of Locklear. Didn't quite connect, but I think that's a really good decision from Hamid.
Gorley's hold-up play. It's picked off by Delaney Lindahl, who has some more work to do. Gets a throw-in with 6 added minutes remaining. Shea for Jordan. Fort Lauderdale have not led all night. It's going to bounce in behind, though. It's Christopher who took it on early. But again, it's right down the heart of the target, and Aquino has no trouble with it. One of her teammates may have a problem here. On the edge of the penalty area, Guiu needs to be stretched out after another chance for Christopher off the bench.
Well, what I like about this is the direct play from Adrian Jordan. They haven't looked to go over the top very often. Christopher does connect quite well with it, just right at Aquino. That's a pretty easy save for Morgan Aquino and securing it. There was an extra player in Locklear looking for any rebound in that moment, but they've switched up the way they play in that moment, which I think is unpredictable for the backline of DC by Jordan deciding, I'm not going to play into people's feet like we've done the majority of the game, and I'm going to look to expose that space.
We'll see how much that injury stoppage is taken into account as well, as far as how much we might play past the minimum of 7 added minutes. It does tend to be a referee by referee thing. Friles followed up on it really nicely for DC and does help it along. It'll still be an opportunity on this far side, and then Fitch, after following up on it, does get a throw-in for DC Power. There's still about 4 minutes, maybe more, still to play. We just passed the minute where DC won it here last time in November. If they're gonna try on that occasion to come up with a winner, the attack fizzles out. From the throw-in, Lindahl looks to follow up, and then Fort Lauderdale do get it clear, only as far as Mernon. Friles dashing towards the edge of the penalty area, and it's a miscued pass looking for Yango. It's a goal kick. It looks like we'll have another substitution here. Katie Duong is going to come on, and Guiu, who was dealing with an issue just a few moments ago, is going to make way. That is Phil Nana's penultimate change of the night.
Well, not only makes sense from the perspective of just how much output that Guiu's done in that midfield space, but you don't want to take the chance of that holding midfield role, her not being able to track runners. So putting Duong in there, she's a steadying force, she's good in possession, can help either see out this game to try to get the point or even help continue to try to expose the wide spaces.
Lindahl. Cushioned header out of play. Duong gets involved immediately. Fort Lauderdale keep possession. As we're getting towards the final few minutes. Still feels like the game is begging for another chance or two down the stretch. Jordan. Ooh, ended up dribbling into the traffic, and Yango picks it off. A chance here for DC up the other end with Kurosaki. She could win it! But Caesar's shot blocked out by Ansbro for a corner. Brought to you by All Year Cooling and Plumbing. Well, that was nearly very, very dangerous from Fort Lauderdale.
Well, it's a great tackle by Yango, and then stepping in right away, getting it out. And then look at the run from Kurosaki. I love the recognition from Gorley that this is the space that was vacated by Adrian Jordan as she went forward. Ansbro just gets in the path of the shot there, but that's a very good build up there in transition.
Well, we said all night that DC's had to take advantage of set pieces when they get them. Can they take advantage here? Well, was congested in and around Morche. And Fort Lauderdale haven't exactly done well to clear this. And the shot from Mernon blocked on the edge of the 18-yard box. Verles has to be careful here. She'll have to settle for the throw-in with about a minute left. Still time for DC to snatch all 3 points. Velez's throw comes up short. Yango follows up. Duong for Gorley, touched away from her, and it's a throw-in for DC. In the final seconds, then we might have a little bit of time more than that. Oh, Yango slipped. Velez put the ball back into play. Velez again looks to provide the service. Clips it towards the back stick, and again, it's cushioned away. Only as far as Susanna Fitch. Wolfbauer has to be careful, loses out to Locklear, whose touch was firm. And DC catch a huge break, as if Locklear kept that in play. There was nobody back. Game is right on the edge in the final seconds here. McCain helps to win it back for Fort Lauderdale. Now she's trapped. And United just get it clear. The 7 minutes have been played. It's up to Aleo Kalume how much longer we go on. And he's going to give a free kick to DC just inside of the midfield line.
Well, you'd assume that they're going to get to play this one completely out. So I would take your time if you're DC, get everyone forward, get this service into the penalty area, organize around it for second, third chance opportunities.
Duong sees the free kick come up a little bit short. Velez headed it on and then tries to track down the clearance, is able to keep it in play. Decent service is headed across here, and DC nearly had a chance to get on the end of it. Now Hamid is brought down, and the referee is going to be forced to bring out a yellow card for escort.
And you almost had to do this in this moment because it wasn't organized after the set piece, so escort has to go. This is a great opportunity, though. A missed clearance there, but Hamid is alert to it, takes the big touch. Escort has to go to try to take it. It actually looks like she didn't even mean to, maybe a bit of a trip, but there was a transition opportunity for Fort Lauderdale if she doesn't go down.
Ticking down towards the 100th minute here, and it's a poor ball forward. Aquino catches, and that is that. Full time here in South Florida. Points dropped again for Fort Lauderdale United in the push to the playoffs. It's a really good point for Phil Nana and DC Power, able to try to build a foundation to the end of their season. But for Fort Lauderdale, it's a missed opportunity to push up the table further.
Well, DC Power stayed in the game through the first half. That was very dominant from Fort Lauderdale United, but not conversion-wise. And they made it disruptive in the second half, DC did, and figured out how to score a goal and really upset the balance of the game. But Fort Lauderdale remains hard to beat, and that's something to remember as you go through the playoff race. 3 points important, but they're still incredibly hard to beat, staying in games and getting results.
Yeah, it is a third game in a row without a win for Fort Lauderdale, but again, they were able to bounce back. Cosette Morche certainly played her part in the game tonight. Tonight's save of the game presented by Omega XL Sports. Made a couple of big stops throughout the night. DC had chances to win this game. I think that should not be forgotten in the balance of play. Fort Lauderdale certainly the more likely throughout, but DC in their moments looked threatening. No questions about that.
They did. They made the most of their moments, but Morshea was incredibly good in behind and just kept the team organized. But we'll look at this goal that was huge from Hamid. And this was a response just within a couple minutes after giving up the goal to DC Power. The service of Felicia Knox, incredibly accurate, powerful header. It bounces down kind of off the underside of the crossbar and in. And you can just see how much that means to Fort Lauderdale as they continue to fight to stay in playoff contention.
Hamid's our performer of the game, brought to you by Baptist Health. Well, in the end, honors even between Fort Lauderdale and DC Power. We sort of told you this was kind of a rubber game between these two. Each team had gotten a win against the other earlier in the season, but the plot thickens as far as the head-to-head between these two in the USL Super League. 1-1 is the final score here on Peacock. We'll step aside for a moment and we will wrap it all up after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Sean St. Jacques, Casey White, our entire crew. 1-1 is the final score between Fort Lauderdale United and DC Power here on Peacock. And we are, as always, pleasure to be joined by Jasmine Hamid from Fort Lauderdale United. Jasmine, thanks so much for taking some time to speak with us. Can you take us through your thoughts on how the match played out, particularly in the second half?
I think we definitely came out in the second half and wanted it a lot. I think we had a lot of chances, first and second half, that we needed to put away. And I know we're going to be thinking about that tonight. I think it was a good team effort, and we worked really hard, especially coming off a loss. But we need to get back into training this coming week and get ready for the next game.
And you could see the passion after the goal that you scored, Jasmine, and just what that meant to you and the team. That was big. Now, what is the message going into this week to turn the 1 point into 3?
I think we need to finish all our chances. You only get a couple throughout the whole game. Those 1, 2, 3 chances, we need to put all of them away so that we can finish the game out. I think we started off a little bit slow, but this week we need to play really hard in training and get ready for our next game.
Jasmine, thanks as always for joining us, and best of luck the rest of the way. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure talking to Jasmine Hamid. 1-1 is the final score here between Fort Lauderdale and DC Power. And of course, now we get a chance to look back through the 90, almost 100 minutes of play here on Peacock with the full-time match highlights presented by Blue Water Books and Charts. We pick it up with, of course, a chance for Fort Lauderdale. They had plenty of them throughout the night.
There was a lot of central play. This one from Addison McCain and Hamid, who we just spoke to, was the closest chance of the first half, going off the post, right off the outside of her foot. She does a really good job just to take this off the bounce and make sure that no one could recover in time. But DC Power survives that one. But DC would be the team that would really start things off right away in the 46th minute. Good play, exposing the wide space. Fitch, the outside back, getting forward, taking on an isolation, and goes right at Lindahl, beats her, and then look at this touch from Gorley. One opportunity, one goal for the center forward.
Her 4th USL Super League goal of the season, so well taken. A really sharp finish to give DC the lead, but of course, Fort Lauderdale had a response.
They did, and they responded quickly. Felicia Knox with a great service, and Jasmine Hamid rises above everyone. It goes across the line off the set piece. There was good play throughout, but they needed this corner kick to equalize, and just a powerful header from the winger.
Big moment, felt like it changed the momentum of the game very quickly after DC was able to get that goal. And in the 83rd minute, Fort Lauderdale nearly got the other goal they needed.
Addie McCain reads this service very well. It pops down to Locklear, it's around, and Christopher goes right off the crossbar. You almost thought, okay, this is the one that's gonna put it ahead. Just, it sails as it bounces up on her.
And that was probably the best chance either side had after Hamid equalized. Beyond Bankert's full-time match stats here. Again, the stats tend to lean towards Fort Lauderdale United. We have to credit DC for not just staying in the game, they grab a really impressive road point.
They do. They figured out how to make it work. They grabbed a little bit of that possession back, getting it up to 41%. But for Fort Lauderdale, they only had 4 shots in that first half, and 1 of them on frame. So they did get more in the attacking third out of their possession the second half with 6 on frame, and DC did a lot more as well going forward, getting 5 total shots.
Well, the plot thickens in the push to the playoffs. For now, Fort Lauderdale stay above the playoff line, even despite dropping points here tonight against DC Power, who are now level on points with Lexington at the bottom of the table. Another really good and fun night of USL Super League action here on Peacock. Fort Lauderdale came in hoping to right the wrong against Tampa Bay from a game ago. They have to settle for a point, and DC, for a second time this season, don't leave empty-handed from South Florida. For Casey White and our entire crew, I'm Sean St. Jacques. We say so long on Beyond Bankert Field. It finishes 1-1 between Fort Lauderdale and DC here on Peacock.